Can postnatal depression be predicted? Is the subject of this discussion. Talking today are Kate Tilbury.
I'm Kate Tilbury. I'm therapist team leader at PsychologyOnline. I'm a qualified psychological therapist. My area of therapy is Cognitive Behavioural Therapy.
Jo Morton.
Hi, I'm Jo. I'm from House of Light, a support group in Hull that provides support to women and their families affected by antenatal and postnatal depression. I was a midwife for 9 years and I had my son in 2006 and developed severe postnatal depression.
And Sharon Davidson.
I'm Sharon Davidson. I work for Infertility Network UK, and part of the charity is called ACeBabes, where we support people who have been successful in their journey to either have a baby through IVF, through adoption, or through surrogacy. I was affected by postnatal depression, both after the birth of my IVF son and following the adoption of my daughter.
We'll be looking at the symptoms, risk factors, and also how we can provide better support to new mothers.
Research that's been undertaken by PsychologyOnline in collaboration with charity Infertility Network UK and the support of the online community Netmums have looked into trying to understand the factors that contribute to postnatal depression and why some women may not seek help. What we concluded were that the women most at risk of developing postnatal depression are those who lack family support or a strong support network, are too embarrassed to admit that they're not coping, are worried about being judged by other people, and did not have anyone they felt they could talk to about their feelings. Another note was that these women are likely to appear to be coping as they would make particular efforts to keep up appearances. Also, these women all scored highly on the Edinburgh Postnatal Depression Scale.
Did your friends and family notice changes in your behaviour that might have indicated PND?
My family did notice, but I kept making excuses for my feelings, especially after the birth of my son. I would have said to them, oh, I'm just feeling this way because of breastfeeding, or I'm just hormonal today, and I couldn't be completely honest with them and tell them that I'm not coping. And I think part of the reason for that was I waited so long for this baby that it just felt like I hadn't got the right to have those negative feelings. And it was only when I went to a trained therapist that I could really be honest and share my feelings in that respect.
Were you aware that you had PND?
I think for me, I was in denial a lot of the time, just putting it down initially, being tired and being a new mom, even, and having the good days and bad days. So I think it wasn't until it really hit me at 5 months, and then there was no escape from it. And obviously my partner knew something was really wrong and felt really helpless as to what to do. And I did get a lot of unhelpful comments, like the classic, what have you got to be depressed about? You've got a baby, and come on, pull yourself out of this, your family needs you. But I think after the realisation how ill I was, there was a lot more supportive, which helped.
What are the main or most common symptoms of postnatal depression?
Everybody suffers differently. I mean, some of the symptoms can include tearfulness, when you don't know what's wrong or why you are crying, panic attacks, nightmares. Some people do have flashbacks to the labour and birth, especially if it was traumatic. And depression can make you really feel physically ill. A lot of women describe absolutely pounding, tense headaches, chest pain, dizziness, which are all related to anxiety. Some feel numb, feel really overwhelmed. A lot of mums put on a brave face. A lot of mums feel like a bad mum. And a lot of mums just feel like if they escaped, it'd make everything better. And it's worst case, obviously, postnatal illness can cause mums to have suicidal feelings and tendencies.
I think the term sometimes postnatal depression can be misleading. It might make us think not to kind of include the anxiety symptoms that we have as well, and how normal they can be.
Yeah, and OCD as well, Kate, I think that's worth mentioning.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the obsessional rituals can come in as well, and that's often unrecognised as well.
How did you feel, Sharon?
Sadness that lasted for weeks and months. Feelings of hopelessness and helplessness. Being irritated by their husband, by their partner, lack of motivation, even getting dressed or contemplating housework was really, really difficult. Difficulty sleeping or sleeping too much, difficulty eating, struggling with any experience of pleasure in their lives and feeling anxiety and worry.
And I think if anybody is interested as well, the Edinburgh Postnatal Depression Scale can be found online, which is a 10-item measure which will go through the typical symptoms of PND.
Who do you think is at greatest risk of developing PND?
I think, whether a mum gets postnatal depression or not, having a baby is a major life change. For the mum physically, emotionally, mentally, that big change in life and how we will be as parents. We've also seen a lot of mums who have had issues with their mother, and I think becoming a mother themselves sort of highlights some of these issues. Many mums who are isolated as well, maybe live out in remote villages, they can be at risk because there is a real lack of support. Professional women, again, Sharon touched on like high expectations we can set, and when baby comes and it doesn't meet that can, really throw a lot of women. It's interesting that we see a lot of mums who've had previous miscarriage or previous pregnancy losses. I think if there's any existing relationship issues, because obviously having a baby can put a huge strain on a relationship. And I think it's also interesting to see, we see a lot of mums who have had a long labour or traumatic birth or have received poor care for whatever reason. I think there's a real great need for an awareness and to get rid of this taboo that needlessly surrounds the subject. And like I said before, it's such a big change in somebody's life, pregnancy and birth, that the sooner these women can get help, the better and the quicker they will recover.
I would say people who are finding it really, really tough to have a baby and who are suffering from fertility problems, I see them as a potential risk group, whether they go on to have a baby through fertility treatment, through surrogacy, through adoption. It's that long wait, and then that view at the end of that wait, if they are successful, that they have to be this perfect mum, that they've waited for so long, how dare they complain, and they have this unrealistic feeling. The other risk group, I think, are mums who have lay in hospital during the pregnancy for whatever reason. Maybe mums who didn't prepare themselves for emergencies, cesarean sections or other sort of emergency measures during the birth might again be at risk because the birth plan isn't working out as they had anticipated, and that might trigger some symptoms as well.
What is cognitive behavioural therapy, and what are the benefits of using this type of therapy?
CBT is one of the most widely accessible treatments within the NHS because it's recognised as a helpful therapy for anxiety and depression. Cognitive stands for our thoughts, and behaviour stands for the actions that we do, or perhaps our behaviours that we don't do. So avoidance might be something that we particularly look at as well. If you engage with CBT, yourself and your therapist will be looking to understand your patterns of behaviour, your patterns of thinking styles, and together you'll be working out whether these are actually helping you or whether they actually are serving to keep some of the problems going, keep some of the feelings of low mood and anxiety there. We will usually start with some type of monitoring form to understand and get a bigger picture really of the patterns that might be forming when people feel more low or more anxious, and that will differ on an individual basis. And we're developing ideas and theories throughout the treatment, and then we test those out and then reviewing what the evidence suggests about that. If we see an improvement, then we might continue in that vein. If, however, we learn something new that actually that doesn't seem to be the problem, then we might readdress that and consider some other changes. So what you can expect to come away with if you engage in any CBT are strategies and techniques to help you cope better. We very much come at it from a point of view as these symptoms make sense. It's no wonder we're feeling X, Y, and Z given the different stresses and pressures that we have on us. So it really is a destigmatizing, non-judgmental therapy.
Yeah, I agree with you that CBT is now a very highly recognised service, and I would definitely recommend people go to their GP and ask for this type of therapy. It's just that one-to-one time with someone who has given you time and space to effectively listen, and you're not in a rushed environment, and you're able to open up and just tell them exactly how you were feeling. And it might have been something that you just couldn't tell your sister or your mum, but you could open up in this environment and you weren't being judged. And I just felt that I got so much out of that emotional honesty. and getting the therapist to analyse your feelings and tell you that what you're feeling is normal.
I think similar to Sharon, sort of having that space, you know, being able to talk about issues or worries that were bothering me, learning techniques as well, you know, to help manage anxiety and depression, somebody being impartial and the reassurance it gave, and I think just feeling supported and held, which if you get a good counsellor, you know, you really feel that, so it's fantastic. It was just great. My biggest recommendation is that the person feels comfortable with the therapist and confident and safe to explore the issues that are bothering them. I'd recommend it to anybody, I really would.
What impact do you think PND has on the rest of the family?
The biggest impact would have been with my husband. I basically found a lot of fault in him. He was out working as he had to. He was a breadwinner at that time, and basically if he wasn't home in time, I found fault with him in that respect. If he wasn't the one getting up in the middle of the night, I was breastfeeding the babies, so I mean I had to get up, and I really just found fault with a lot of issues to do with my husband. He probably suffered a lot in silence.
Yeah, it certainly did. I mean, my husband tried to be as supportive as he could be, but you know, it impacts the whole family. Sometimes he didn't know what to do or what to say. At times I resented that his life, you know, hadn't really changed, that, you know, he got up, went to work, came home. I mean, I used to watch the clock, just desperate for him to get home so I could sort of mentally and practically sort of hand over, you know, and I just did. I felt really resentful that my old world had been turned upside down, but he seemingly still carried on. But, you know, I became well again, and we worked through it, and I think as a result, as we've got through that together, it can also make you stronger.
Given your experience, do you think it's possible for fathers to suffer from PND as well?
I think it was quite interesting on Netmums' website actually, and they've got a section about fathers getting PND and also have a forum for fathers, and they were just highlighting that some of the ways that the expectations that men perhaps have from society to be the provider, to be the support, how the relationship with their partner might change quite significantly once a child comes along, and then the lack of sleep and just the disruption in routine, and you know, it really can have its bearing on all those involved in the arrival of a newborn.
We have worked with dads. We do get dads contacting us, you know, maybe struggling because becoming a parent, it's not just the mum, it's a life change for the dad as well, and there's a sleep disruption involved. It's not just the mum who can get it, dads do struggle as well. And I think the last figures that I saw suggested 1 in 10 dads do get postnatal depression.
Yes, we have couples who come to our support groups who are desperate for a baby, and the fathers are as desperate as the mums to have this baby. So it follows on that when this baby eventually does come along, the fathers do get depressed. And it really is just this view of this should all be perfect now, you've been for this for so long, having to live up to that dream. And if the mums are depressed, that can have a detrimental effect on the fathers as well, because they're hearing a lot of negativity, and that is probably going to influence them. So yes, I do feel the fathers can get PND. Not as much, and I think 1 in 10 would probably be a realistic figure.
Do you have any final thoughts or recommendations for those who think they may be suffering from PND?
I think it seems important to just say that it can feel really quite isolating, that the role transition, it seems to be greater perhaps for the mum, and that actually that's where therapy really comes into its own, and that is a time and a place just for those who need it to get that time and that support that they need. There really are options for people, and therapy really is available for people to get that support.
I think people just need to ask for respite help from family and friends so that they have a new baby. They need to get that time to feel like they're not just a mum, that they're a wife, they're a sister, they're a friend. Even if it's just for like 30 minutes a day, talk to other new mums, and whether that sort of a baby groups, that type of thing, and see how they feel, and trying to be a bit more honest from themselves and not putting on the brave face, not thinking they have to be perfect in everyone else's eyes. And please ask for help a bit sooner. The longer it goes on, the worse the symptoms tend to get without some kind of help.
I think just to say it again, you know, if anybody feels anxious or worried in pregnancy, please talk to your GP, your health visitor, your midwife. And again, you know, after you've had your baby, if you feel you're not doing very well, or if it does feel overwhelming, you know, even if you haven't got any of the other symptoms that we talked about, just please open up to somebody, because, you know, I'll echo what Sharon said, the sooner you get help, the sooner you will recover, and there's lots of treatments out there. It's not about your ability as a mom, it really isn't, and there's a lot of things that can be done to help, so just please do not suffer in silence.
A big thank you to Jo Morton and Sharon Davidson for sharing their experiences with us today, and also to Kate Tilbury from Psychology Online for her views and advice on PND and CBT.